So yes, as Taranita said, we are going to be, going back to our exploration of samadhi by looking at the five Buddha mandala. It's a kind of particular favourite, the five Buddha mandala of the centre here in Bristol. We used it quite a lot as a teaching tool, and I found the more I've reflected on it, the more it gives. It's a very good way of unpacking certain Buddhist teachings. So yes, we have this mandala of five Buddhas, and the Buddhas, each one is a figure, but they all come out of this single white light, which is the white light of, you could say, the Buddha mind of awakening, and it's refracted, this white light, into the colours of the prism, the primary colours. So we have the blue Buddha Akshobhya, we have the yellow Buddha Ratnasambhava that we're going to look at tonight. In a few weeks, we're going to look at Amitabha, the red Buddha, and then Amoghasiddhi, the green Buddha. And then finally, in January, we're going to be looking at Vairochana, who is the white Buddha. So yeah, we looked at, I said a bit about, on our first week exploring this mandala, I said a bit about what mandalas are and how they're a representation of a pattern of wholeness, and they have different mandalas have gateways to them. Particularly the Buddhist mandalas, they have gateways. So each of the five Buddhas, apart from being a Buddha in the mandala, they're also a gateway into the mandala. But usually the mandala is entered from the east through the gateway of Akshobhya, and you could say that the path of the mandala follows the path of the sun as well. So Akshobhya is associated with the east, with dawn, like the sun rising in the east, and we enter in that way from the east. And Akshobhya was this imperturbable figure, seated on an elephant throne, and his wisdom was the mirror-like wisdom. So the mirror-like wisdom reflects everything clearly as it is. It sees every aspect and reflects it perfectly clearly. And the mirror is unstainable, it's unmarkable. So whatever appears in the mirror doesn't stain the mirror. And you could say this is like the awakened mind, that whatever appears within the awakened consciousness doesn't stick to it, doesn't stain it. Most of us, the stuff that appears in, or maybe I should just speak for myself, stuff that appears in my consciousness often gets stuck there, or can get stuck there, so that's the quality of Akshobhya and his wisdom. And the wisdoms are what's most essential about the five Buddhas. So it's the realizing of their wisdoms that can lead us to spiritual awakening. So we come to Ratnasambhava. So the sun rises in the east, and it moves towards the zenith, towards the top point, to midday, and there appears in the mandala the figure of Ratnasambhava. And he, like the sun of the midday, is yellow, the yellow Buddha, and he sits upon a horse throne, and he's associated with riches and jewels, and his mudra, or his what's called a mudra, or you could say gesture, is the gesture of giving, generosity, dana. So just share with you so hopefully you can see that, the figure of Ratnasambhava. Again, this is one of the wonderful expressive paintings painted by Kumida, one of the order members who lives here in Bristol, who also painted the female Buddhas who appear in the reception room of the Buddhist Centre. It would be nice to do a whole thing on the female Buddhas. Actually, the female Buddhas are also called the five pranyas. So pranya means wisdom. So the female Buddhas represent the wisdom aspect of that Buddha. So in a way, by talking about the wisdom aspect, we are going to the five female Buddhas as well. So there you can see the beautiful horses that Kumida is painting, and the figure of Ratnasambhava in the middle. And at his heart, he holds a jewel, and this jewel is called the Chintamani, or wish-fulfilling jewel. And you can't quite see it perhaps in this image, but he's holding his hand out. What's the other hand? I don't know which way around I am on Zoom, but anyway, he's holding his hand out in the gesture of giving. So, what about his wisdom? So, the wisdom of Ratnasambhava is what's called the samatha wisdom. So, samatha means, in this case, something like sameness. So, it's the wisdom of sameness. So what is the same about all things? Well, what's the same about all things from the Buddha mind point of view is that they are unfixed. They have no fixed self, no fixed identity to them. All that manifests, and all that manifests is able to manifest. Everything that appears in phenomenal existence is able to manifest because of this unfixed nature. So the word associated with this is shunyata in Buddhism, which means something like emptiness. But it's not the emptiness in the way that we normally think about it. So another way of talking about shunyata, emptiness in this Buddhist context, is as infinite potentiality. So it also includes what is manifest, what is intrinsic, and what is potential within it, within that emptiness. And this might start to all sound very kind of confusing and mystical. In a way it's not, in a way maybe it is. Form, the manifest, and emptiness are really one and the same thing, which is stated in the Heart Sutra that we recite in the puja. For those of you familiar with the puja, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. You could call it a famous Buddhist phrase. But generally speaking, we're fixated on form to the point where we cease to see the transient nature of things. We cease to see the unfixed nature of things. And this not seeing the unfixed nature of things is a cause of suffering. You could say it's the primary cause of suffering for us as human beings. We try to cling on to these forms that appear. But all things are in a constant process of flow. All things are, as Kukai says, the Zen master said, all things are flowing into an unfathomable abyss. And there is no definitive thing to grasp hold of in the first place. There's nothing there to grasp hold of. All this grasping and holding on to life and reality really just takes place in our minds. The thingness, seeing life, people, objects in terms of things never actually satisfies us, because we can't actually, in the end, get hold of anything in a definitive way. And it is just our heads that try to do this. And really, they're just ideas. We have ideas about things and we try to grasp onto these ideas of the things that will make us happy. But those ideas are also thingless. They're also slipping into that unfathomable abyss. So we're actually sort of trying to grasp after evanescent, empty things. So the wisdom of Ratnasambhava is the wisdom that sees this. It's the wisdom of emptiness, of the seeing of the thinglessness that all phenomenon share. And emptiness doesn't end the manifest, as I've already indicated. Emptiness, in fact, is the manifest. So the knowing of the wisdom of sameness ends the delusion about the nature of the manifest, and thereby the clinging to something that is simply manifestation with no graspable quality to it. And this realization, maybe contrary to how it sounds, is liberation. It's a difficult liberation to realize, because the construct of our self, our egoic self, doesn't want to accept the fact that this is the case, and it resists our attempts to see this. But also that self-construct, that ego identity, is also just made up of thought in the end, and is also just transient, and so has no thingness, no final reality to it either. Emptiness, shunyata, has been translated by Herbert Gunther, who was a man who translated many of the Buddhist wisdom texts, the Prajnaparamita texts, into English. Translated shunyata as the open dimension of being, an all-encompassing empty field of dynamic awareness and non-locatable presence. So the wisdom of Kshobhya is symbolized by the mirror, which acts as a very useful symbol for this wisdom. The mirror sees and reflects everything as it is. Nothing clings to it. So the image for Ratnasambhava's wisdom is the blue sky. So the blue sky stretches in all directions without any end. It's unbounded and unbounded, just as the Buddha mind is. It has no things in it, yet also everything is able to manifest within it as non-concrete appearance, like clouds appearing in the blue sky, arising and forming from nothing and returning into nothing, and yet still apparent, still manifest. Each cloud has a unique appearance. Each is beautiful in its own way, but they arise and disappear and don't ever have any solid form to them. And however many clouds appear in the blue sky, and however dark and thick they might get, none of them alter or disturb the blue sky itself. It remains, as it were, at the back of everything after all the clouds are gone. It remains as a pure, empty awareness, non-fixed beingness without characteristics, present within and without. So I would suggest that each of the five Buddhas has a spiritual death and a spiritual rebirth aspect. So this idea of spiritual death and spiritual rebirth, we explored this when we explored the system of practice a couple of years ago, where we used the five Buddha mandala and the associated meditations that go with the five Buddha mandala that we teach within Triratna. We explore this idea of spiritual death and spiritual rebirth alongside the other aspects of the mandala of practice, integration, positive emotion, and receptivity. So I suggest that the spiritual death aspect of Ratnasambhava is seeing through this illusion of self, or if you prefer, of fixed self. But the spiritual rebirth aspect, I would suggest, is the openness of the blue sky, of shunyata, and the possibility of that open dimension of being, and the creativity that is associated with that. So seeing the empty, open nature of being reveals and doesn't obscure the manifest potentiality. So there's this beautiful phrase, I think I quoted it last week at some point, from the English poet, William Blake, who seems to be a very awakened Englishman. It's actually possible to be English and awakened, maybe. He said in one phrase, "Eternity is in love with the productions of time." Eternity is in love with the productions of time. Awakening is in love with the manifest. The empty blue sky delights in all that appears within it, every cloud, every shape. And this is where I think the wisdom, as one shades into the other, so we still carry the flavor of Akshobhya's wisdom into the blue sky of Ratnasambhava. And similarly, this open dimension, appreciative of everything that arises in it, of all the richness associated with it, carries us into, in my view, into the wisdom of Amitabha, the all-distinguishing wisdom, which we're going to explore next time we come back to the mandala with Amitabha, which is the appreciation of the uniqueness, the diversity, the individuality of everything, and the great love that manifests in relationship to that. So Ratnasambhava, as we said, is associated with jewels, with giving. He's also associated with aesthetic appreciation. the appreciation of the beautiful, or just appreciation in and of itself. So he could be seen as the patron of creativity and the arts. So the jewel that you can see in the image that he holds to his heart, the wish-fulfilling jewel, the Chintamani in Sanskrit, the language of Buddhism, it gives everything that our heart desires. So it's like Aladdin's lamp. It gives us everything that the heart desires, but it especially gives us what the heart truly desires, which is non-different from the freedom and peace of Ratnasambhava. I seem to have run out of words on my page, so guess that's all I'm going to say about Ratnasambhava for the moment. Well, no, actually it's not. So I always like to, that when we talk about something in the centre, that we try and do some practice that relates to it, so that we can start to get some experiential appreciation of what we're talking about. So shortly we're going to do a meditation based on Ratnasambhava, or based on the wisdom of Ratnasambhava. So I was just going to introduce now that meditation. So in our direct experience, the way that, or one way that the wisdom of Ratnasambhava can be approached is through the spaciousness of awareness. So you might already remember, particularly if we've done an intro course recently, that when we talk about the meditation hindrances, it's possible you're introduced to one of the antidotes to the hindrances, which is called the sky-like mind. So this is a way of just allowing whatever distractions are appearing in our mind at any one time, to just be there, to just float through the blue sky, the sky-like mind. And like clouds passing, they arise, they form, they disappear. We don't attach to them. We just see them as evanescent, arising and disappearing. So when we close our eyes and look at our experience, we can see things arising in the way of the six senses. So everything that manifests in our experience, sensations, perceptions of the other senses, the other four senses, and the sense of the mind, because in Buddhism, and this is important, that the mind is also seen as a sense. And really it's seen as being no different from the other six senses, in that it's something that manifests in experience. We attach an enormous amount as human beings to our thinking minds. Maybe with good reason. We are thinking beings. It's what differentiates us from most of the animal kingdom, our ability to think and abstract, and the creation of language. But you could say there's a downside to this, that thinking has become our predominant way of relating to our experience. And it's also been the place that we get very kind of caught up. So we create worlds of thought which we live in, which you could call views. So we all have a particular view of the world. We all have a particular view of ourselves. And a lot of our views of the world and the views of ourselves don't bear relationship to how things really are. And this disparity between our views of ourselves and the world and others not being in accord with the way things are, the way the Buddha mind sees it, is the origin of our suffering. So much of our attention is taken up with the mind sense. We're literally almost stuck in our heads a lot of the time. But from the point of view of awareness, emptiness, the space of awareness, all thoughts are simply manifesting in the blue sky like clouds. So we're going to do a meditation that focuses on thought. And we're going to see if we can look in a way that sees thought simply as something that is just manifesting in this open space of awareness. Just like sounds might appear or pop into that space of awareness, thoughts are doing exactly the same thing. They're just popping into that space of awareness. So I came across a good meditation recently, and the person who's leading it spoke of thoughts more like birds in the sky than clouds. And I thought this was good because birds pass through the sky. You know, you see out of my window, I often see pigeons, you know, or gulls, and they fly through the blue sky, and they're almost gone as soon as they appear, and they flit through the sky. So thoughts are very much like this. They flit through our experience. Considering how evanescent they are, how temporary, how ephemeral, we give them an awful lot of power. So we'll have a look at thoughts in that way. We're seeing them like birds flying across a blue sky. Bit different to clouds, which tend to form quite slowly and arise quite slowly and disappear quite slowly. Perhaps the cloud analogy might work for better for something like emotions. Okay, so we'll start our meditation. So we haven't got lots of time, so that we can have a good look at thought, I will just do a brief body lead in. So I highly recommend whenever starting a meditation to start by grounding yourself in the body. And that really means coming into relationship with our direct sensate experience. Letting go of the thinking mind. Awareness is not actually, although it may seem like this sometimes, is not actually attached to thinking. It can unhook from it and come into the other senses. And it's particularly useful and grounding to come into the body sense, the sensate field of our experience, tactile experience of the body. Sometimes we don't want to let go in our thoughts, especially if we've been up there all day, maybe on a computer screen or working with our heads all day. And our body might feel a little distant. So just welcoming the body. And you can see our attention, our awareness, just sliding down out of the head and coming into direct sensate experience. So looking for sensations in the body. If you want to, you can drop down from the head down to the lower abdomen. Just coming down your own pace. Just following the sensations as you come down. Sensations in the head and face. Imagine that somebody had unplugged something at the bottom of your brain, and awareness was able to just ooze down into the physical body. Your body will thank you for it. You can see it as a red light or a red liquid pouring down, warm, into the sensate body. Touching all the sensations, bringing them alive, entering into them. Right down to the lower abdomen. And that red light, oozing red light, gathering in the lower abdomen. A great sense of contentedness, of ease, being at home in the body. Everything that arises in our experience, our sensations, perceptions of the other senses, sound, taste, smell, sight, just appear in a field of awareness. Without that awareness, nothing would be known or experienced. This awareness is unbounded. It's completely open, like a blue sky. This great openness of our awareness is what allows everything to manifest within it. Sensations of the body, whatever sounds are present, whatever other perceptions are present, arising in this blue sky of awareness. Uncomfortable experience, comfortable experience, liked experience, unliked experience. It's all unimpeded in awareness. It's simply there, arising. Can we step back into that blue sky, become the blue sky that sees everything arising in it? The blue sky doesn't inhibit anything, it doesn't judge anything. It simply is aware, knows everything that arises in it. Okay, and we notice also that we are thinking at this moment, thoughts are arising. And those thoughts too arise in this blue sky. in this empty field of awareness. You can notice also that thoughts just appear unsolicited. We don't choose our thoughts, they just pop into this blue sky in the same way that sound just appears in the blue sky. Thoughts appear, exist briefly, and then vanish. They're like birds flying flittingly and briefly through this empty sky of awareness. So the Buddha said that we are not our thoughts. If we were our thoughts, we'd be able to determine exactly what we think at any one time. But maybe we can see if we look closely that thoughts just appear. We don't know beforehand what we're going to think. We don't know what our next thought is going to be. We tend to think that we are the thinker of our thoughts. But is it actually like that in our direct experience? Can we actually find a thinker of thoughts in our experience? Or is the thinker of thoughts just another thought? Thoughts like birds flitting through the sky. There's no special bird that chooses and dictates the other birds. There is this space of awareness, the blue sky. Thoughts, sounds, sensations manifesting in it. So we may have the thought that contains the thought, that there is an individual thinker or chooser of thoughts. But can we actually find one? Or is that what we only ever find, just another thought arising in the blue sky? It's just thoughts and this space of awareness. Stepping back into the blue sky, not trying to control anything, just allowing experience, including thoughts, just to arise. Just being, the allowing of your thoughts, the allowing of those birds just to pass in and pass out of awareness. And then gradually allowing the blue sky to dissolve. Just relaxing further, letting go. And in your own time, just bring the meditation to a close.